There is a question that quietly follows certain people through their lives. Why did I change? Not in the ordinary way that everyone changes, growing older, learning new things, picking up new habits, but in the deeper way, the way where you wake up one morning and realize the version of you that existed a few years ago would barely recognize who you have become. Not because life got better or worse in any obvious sense, but because something happened. Something was said, or done, or left unsaid, and it landed in a place inside you that never quite recovered. Wounds of the heart do not work the way physical wounds do. A cut heals, a bruise fades, but a moment of humiliation, a calculated betrayal, a kindness that was thrown back like something unwanted, those things do not simply disappear with time. They get stored, and without any conscious instruction from you, your mind begins to use them as reference points. The nervous system, brilliant and merciless, learns from pain the way a child learns from a hot stove. It remembers, it adjusts, and slowly, without you ever deciding to, you become someone who approaches the world differently. The hardest part is not the pain itself. The hardest part is watching the gap widen between who you were and who you are becoming. You remember the version of yourself that walked into rooms without scanning them first. The version that heard someone say, "I care about you," and simply believed it. The version that gave without calculating, that trusted without rehearsing reasons not to. That version felt like home. And somewhere along the way, you stopped being able to go back there. Most creatures on this earth experience pain and then move past it. There is something about human consciousness that refuses that simplicity. We revisit. We replay. A single conversation from years ago can play on a loop in the mind with startling clarity. The exact tone, the exact words, the exact expression on the other person's face when they showed you who they really were. We are perhaps the only beings alive who can suffer so thoroughly from memories of things that are already over, and from fears of things that have not yet happened at all. And life, if you live it long enough with your eyes open, teaches you things you did not ask to learn. You discover that some people's loyalty has a quiet expiration date, one that activates the moment staying loyal costs them something. You discover that kindness, offered freely and without strategy, is sometimes read as an invitation to take advantage. You discover that many connections are built not on genuine care, but on usefulness, and that when the usefulness runs out, so does the connection. These are not dramatic revelations. They come quietly, through accumulated experience, through small moments of disappointment stacked one on top of another until the weight becomes impossible to ignore. And when you finally stop looking away from these patterns, something shifts. Not loudly, not all at once, but you begin moving through life differently. You listen more than you speak. You observe behavior over time instead of taking words at face value. You hold certain parts of yourself back, not out of cruelty, but because warmth, offered too freely to the wrong people, has previously cost you more than you could afford. The warmth is still there. It did not leave. It simply learned to be more careful about where it goes. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes with this kind of clarity. It is not the loneliness of being physically alone. It is the loneliness of being in a room full of people and feeling fundamentally unseen by all of them. Of carrying something heavy and real while everyone around you exchanges pleasantries and performs versions of themselves that nobody fully believes. You begin to notice how rarely two people actually speak honestly with each other, how most conversations are really just social choreography, each person saying what the moment seems to require rather than what is actually true. Once you see that clearly, it becomes very hard to unsee. And without meaning to, you begin standing slightly outside of things, watching, present in body, but somewhere else in mind. Wondering whether the connections you observe between people are as real as they appear, or whether everyone is simply performing for everyone else simultaneously, and calling that performance life. Then there is the fear. Not the clean, immediate fear of a physical threat, the kind that arrives fast and leaves when the danger passes, but the slow, grinding, entirely invisible fear that lives in the spaces between moments. The fear of what might happen. The fear of what probably will happen, based on what has happened before. The mind, trained by enough disappointment, stops waiting to be hurt and begins anticipating it. A message that arrives late becomes evidence of fading interest. A silence that lasts too long becomes confirmation of something terrible. A stretch of good days becomes suspicious, the calm before something breaks. This is not a character flaw. It is what a nervous system does after it has been disrupted enough times. It learns to stay alert. It begins treating the absence of danger as simply a phase, a temporary reprieve before the next thing arrives. And the cost of living this way is enormous, because a person in that state is never fully present. They are always partially somewhere else, in the future, running calculations, bracing for impact. The beautiful, ordinary moment happening right in front of them is experienced through a filter of worry about when it will end. And so people develop ways of managing. Some pull back emotionally, not because they stopped feeling, but because feeling deeply in environments that have repeatedly punished that depth stopped making sense. They are not cold. They are exhausted. They still feel everything. They have simply stopped announcing it to people who have shown they will not handle it with care. Others put on a version of themselves that the world finds easier to receive. The performer. The one who has a response for everything, who laughs easily, who seems unbothered. Behind that performance is often a person who has simply learned that honesty carries risks that the honest person tends to absorb alone. Some people try to control what they can, rehearsing conversations, mapping worst-case scenarios, keeping every variable in view so that nothing can catch them off guard. The logic is sound. The execution is unsustainable. Life refuses to be managed this completely. And the energy spent trying to prevent every possible surprise leaves very little left for actually living. Others run toward noise and distraction, keeping screens on, schedules full, silence at bay, because silence has a texture they have come to find unbearable. In silence, the parts of yourself you have been carefully avoiding have a way of making themselves heard. But buried things do not stay buried. They surface eventually, in irritability over something too small to warrant it, in a heaviness that arrives for no clear reason, in the kind of exhaustion that a full night of sleep cannot touch. Because what is tired is not the body. What is tired is something that lives underneath the body, in the place where all the unprocessed things have been quietly accumulating. Here is what is worth saying, though, and saying clearly. The person who has been through all of this, who has been changed by it, who moves more slowly now and holds certain things more carefully, that person is not broken. They are not damaged beyond repair. What they are is shaped. Shaped by real experiences, real losses, real encounters with the parts of human nature that most people would rather not look at directly. And the shape they have taken, while harder in certain places than it once was, is also more honest, more discerning, more genuinely themselves, beneath the version of themselves that existed before they knew what they now know. There are people moving through their days right now carrying battles that no one around them can see, trying to learn how to trust again after the last time cost them something they are still recovering from. Still showing up, still building, still reaching toward meaning even when cynicism would be the easier and more logical response. Still choosing, quietly, without applause, without recognition, to remain open to the possibility of genuine connection in a world that has given them real reasons to close. That choice does not get celebrated the way it deserves. But it is not a small thing. To continue caring after being hurt by caring. To continue giving after experiencing what happens when the wrong person receives what you give. To get up and keep going without knowing for certain that it gets better, only believing that it might. That is not weakness wearing the costume of survival. That is something genuinely rare. And the person you are becoming through all of it, more deliberate, more real, more quietly and specifically kind. That person is worth knowing. That person is worth becoming. And whatever broke you, it did not finish you.